So one of the things that's always fascinated me about human nature is this proclivity that we have to despise in other people the things that we struggle with inside of ourselves. And this was brought so much to light with me reading this book recently, The Secret History of Bigfoot. This was my first 1 star of the whole entire year. It was the book I have least liked but still finished in quite a while now, and I think it was the single biggest bait and switch that I have read in the past like 5 or 10 years maybe. Like it's literally so rough. Okay, right? So this is supposed to be a book about Bigfoot, right? So I like go to pick this up. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. Like maybe learn like a little bit more of the, the history of like the legends. Like I know there's, Native American legends and all these other people in countries have legends about it and whatever. I'm like, this is gonna be such an interesting, cool, fun listen. Like I'm driving back from vacation recently. I'm gonna listen through it while I'm driving through the night. I've got the audio book and I've got the physical book, and I'm just gonna bust through it. And I kid you not, of every single paragraph, if you add up all the paragraphs in this book, 40% of the paragraphs in this book are about Trump and about how conservative white men are the problem with everything that has ever gone wrong in the world and everything that ever will go wrong in the world. And yeah, pretty much. If you add those two topics together, that's at least 40% of the paragraphs in this book, right? It is just astounding the way that this book is written. Like it is I was asking a buddy, he was like, yeah, what'd you think of that? And I was like, dude, literally, I feel like this author, I feel like John O'Connor wanted to write a book that was like, he was like, I just want to get in the face of every white conservative male, and especially ones who have voted for Trump, and just puke all over them and tell them that they are the problem with everything in the world ever, and I hate them all and I hate their guts. But like I can't just do that. Like if I write a book, like they won't read it. So I know what I'll do. I'll write a book pretending to write a book about Bigfoot, which is like something that those guys would be interested in and like have fun going to read, and then I'll just do it in there, and it'll really just be a book about all of my political views, but I'll pretend like it's about Bigfoot. But the fascinating thing, the thing that I really want to pull out of this is there's a couple of quotes, and there's 2 of them that I want to read, and one which was 100 pages in that was really like, okay, I was like, this is when we're starting to go downhill. Was he said, even demonstrably batshit belief in headless cannibals, in Jesus rising from the dead, in the COVID-19 pandemic being a global hoax orchestrated by the CDC and Zoom to prevent the tangerine tornado from being reelected, can make you feel as if you've pierced the Baudrillarian veil to see the world as it truly is. Not so long ago, perfectly reasonable people thought exposure to moonlight could get a girl pregnant, or that rainwater found on tombstones removed freckles, or that 7,409,127 demons worked for Lucifer, overseen by 79 devil princes, and helped by countless witches who multiplied faster than they could be burned alive. In many ways, our lives remain influenced by beliefs that were set in place when we crucified people on the regular, right? And he's talking about this whole thing of these ridiculous, batshit crazy beliefs, right? And how like we've moved beyond that. Like I use reason and logic and think through things and all this stuff. And later on in the book, he was quoting another guy, and he said, Anderson said, "It's an instance of complicated consequential synergy, apparently harmless fictions blending and growing and spreading through the culture, combining with particular religious and political mindsets to become dangerous, with impacts on the real world. There is a line extending from flying saucer obsessives to 9/11 truthers to Donald Trump. All are part of a new American religion, a surreal alchemy of hokum that may very well usher in another 2,000 years of zealotry and superstition." And last one, and then I'll get to the point. He says, if it's no longer God that people want, then perhaps it's simply reassurance they're not alone in their beliefs, even when, especially when, the meaning of those beliefs isn't always intelligible. As beguiled as I am by this vision, as I was by Jefferson, There is, to be sure, some non-trivial convergence, well apart from the Gandalf beards and the Buddha paunches, between Bigfooters and Trumpers. Extreme reactionary views, a tendency toward the sensationalistic, a fetishization of traditional masculinity, a hard-bitten mistrust of urban elites generally and the federal government and its scientific minions specifically, coupled with an inverse reflexive flag-waving and suspicion of protesters and kneelers, as well as a depth of commitment we used to reserve for the church. That's not consistent among all Bigfooters, obviously, any more than wokester inanities like defunding the police are among self-hating liberals, but there seem to be a disproportionate number of Trumpers in Jefferson, Texas, amounting almost to a homogeneity. It was Texas, after all. A key characteristic of both is that they trust themselves and themselves alone to parse fact from fiction, while at the same time the language they share often doesn't register a difference between the two. And so the point that I want to get to with all this, right, is it's this thing of like what you see and what greatly annoys you in other people is oftentimes a reflection of what you're doing and something that you don't like about yourself. And he writes this whole book, and his whole premise of it is like Bigfoot is this white male supremacist thing, the same as Trump, the same as whatever, and he espouses this worldview that is completely based on this one belief of like white conservative men are the problem with everything that ever has and ever will happen, right? And it's founded on this core belief. But then he goes out in the whole book and says that the premise of this is he's going to investigate Bigfoot with an open mind, and gets on this high horse about how, you know, we need to let go of these beliefs, and we need to look at rational things and realistic evidence, and we need to examine all the things and not just hold to this belief, you know, we just hold on to it regardless of any of the facts and any of the anything. And you sit there and you're like, dude, but you're not doing that. Like, you're not open-minded at all. Like, you have this belief that everything Trump has ever said is a lie, right? That's a very dogmatic belief, and you're not open-minded to the possibility of anything that he has said ever being good. You have this belief that white conservative men have been the downfall of everything in the whole entire world, and you're not open to any possible suggestion of like, yeah, but also they did this good thing, right? And so the very thing that you're like just dissing on all these people for, on these Bigfooters and Trumpers and the conservatives and everyone, the thing that you're attacking them for the most, which is this dogmatic belief in their Christian faith and this dogmatic belief that they have and not letting go of anything, you're doing the exact same thing. You literally are doing exactly the same thing. You have these beliefs that you have that you are not open to changing or examining or anything at all. Donald Trump is always just going to be the Antichrist to you, even though you're not religious, right? Like, white men are always going to be the problem and always going to be the oppressor. Like, there's no openness to any story throughout any history where the white man wasn't the oppressor, right? And it's just all these beliefs that are like, that can't be true. Like, these things that you're thinking and saying like can't actually be true, but you're holding on to them and you're doing the exact same thing that you're judging and dissing and just reaming on everybody else for. The very same thing. You don't have the humility to admit that you're doing it as well, right? And in some ways we can't ever get away from it. It's human nature. Like, we can't get away from this kind of thing. But yeah, oh my gosh. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense. What you think. Don't read this book. It was terrible. It was absolutely freaking terrible. As if it had just been a political commentary, I could have respected John a little bit, because it's like, hey, you know what? Like, share your opinion. Sweet. I don't care. You're entitled to your opinion. And if you want to have a conversation, I would love to have a conversation about it. But don't couch it in this message of like, oh, I'm going to talk about this thing while secretly talking about this thing. Like, just come out and say it, dude. Just come out and say it. Like, for reals. Don't do this crap. Don't do this crap. So there you go. There's your message for the day. Don't do that crap. Don't bait and switch. Say what you mean what you say, and let the chips fall where they will. So there you go. Rant over.